Hey, it's Eric Pena again, and this time I want to talk to you about Trumpet Etude number 2. So right from the beginning, let's look at the first phrase that we have. We're going to go all the way to measure 16, where we have a quarter rest. That's where we're going to take our breath, and that's where the phrase ends. So same as before, pull your shoulders back, take a full breath, and starting off at fortissimo volume, we have two staccato notes leading into legato notes. So make sure those staccato notes and the legato notes are a little exaggerated with the different styles. Going to the second line, measure 8, watch that rhythm there. You have a quarter note into the half note, which it's different than what we played on the first line. So be aware of that. When we get to measure 10, it's more of a flourish style, okay? So try to think of it like that, like when we're adding fills, having some scale runs behind a melody or behind a vocalist. That's what's going on in this section. Follow the articulation markings because I think it'll help you get that style down. All right, so you have some legatos, you have some staccatos. When you get to the triplets, be sure not to rush through that. All of this stuff is actually a very comfortable and slow tempo. It says 160 for the quarter note, but once you're playing it, it's very easy to rush through it, and you want to avoid that. Keep everything nice and controlled. That way, when you get to those triplet notes, they don't smash together and every note has room to breathe. Let me demonstrate a little bit of this intro for you. And now that you know what to listen for from some of the things that I described, pay attention to that and listen to how I play it. Okay, so if you were paying attention to that, you heard the staccato notes at the beginning, then it goes into legato. When I got to the flourish style at measure 10, I was real careful about the articulations there, not overdoing it, but making it feel natural. When I got to the triplets, nothing smashed together. Everything was all of those notes are legato, and then you get to the last two that are staccato. So don't take a breath there. Keep pushing through to measure 16. Now you take the breath. All right, so be aware of that. Continuing on from there, we're doing a decrescendo. There's a few more things with articulation, and then a ritardando going into the tempo change, and that's going to be the middle section of the etude. So the first section wasn't too hard. There's a couple of things to keep in mind when you're playing it, but it's not too complicated. Think of it kind of as a warm-up getting into the rest of the etude. All right, let's talk about this tempo change at measure 21. So measure 21, tempo change, and kind of a different style also. All right, we're going to emphasize the articulations here. Similar to the etude number 1, where there was slight difference interpretations of short notes and long notes. When I played this etude, I kind of interpreted everything as short, light, and separated, except for the dotted eighth notes. However, after speaking with Joe Baca, he explained to me that his envision was legato notes up until the marked staccato notes. So I'll play it both ways. We both agree that it's up to interpretation, but whatever interpretation you choose, make sure that it's intentional and that you play it with that intent. Okay, so here's the way I interpreted this middle section. Okay, so you can hear how some of the eighth notes are a little separated. It's not overly staccato, but I have space between the notes. Okay, now here's another interpretation where you would treat the notes as legato unless marked. It's up for interpretation. Just make sure what the way you're playing it and the way you choose to do it is intentional and you know how you want to play it. Then when we get to measure 25, you kind of want to play this more lyrical. It should kind of drag a little bit, but it's more of a lyrical feeling. So it should contrast from what we were just playing. Moving on from the lyrical measures from 25 to 27, now we have measure 29. We have a break with a quarter rest. That's where we're going to take a big breath, and that breath is going to last us all the way up until the 6/8 measure. So this would be like the third section of the song, if you will, or the second half of the middle. All right. So, ba-ga-da-ga-dum, breath, big breath, ba-ga-da-ga-dum, ba-bum, ba-bum, ba-da-dum. That should be full volume. And then when you get to the all state cut, everything is super connected, super lyrical with the decrescendo. Let me demonstrate a little bit starting at 26. Let's talk about the all state cut. So we're going to start off with the big decrescendo down to piano, and it's going to be slurred eighth notes. Follow the scale pattern all the way down, then you land on the B. Now, when you get to the next section of these staccato eighth notes, make them light and crisp. And then when you get to measure 40, that's extremely legato and connected. It should contrast with the notes before it. So you can hear how the staccato eighth notes were light and crisp, and then once I get to the second to last line, measure 40, I play that very legato and connected. All right, now let's look at the very last part of this etude. That's going to be the 6/8. We're going to start with the crescendo going into full volume at forte, legato notes going into it, and then all staccato. Mostly, there's a couple of legato notes in the last line, but this is all arpeggios. So the thing to remember here is take your time, do it at a slow tempo first so that you're getting all of the right intervals, and only when you're getting all of the right intervals should you increase the tempo. Here's a demonstration of that. Okay, so there's a couple of tricky spots in there. Again, playing this at a slower tempo is going to allow you to play it faster, but you have to get your repetitions in at a slow tempo. All right, this would be the recommended tempo I would practice it at until your ear is used to hearing where these intervals are going. Once you're able to play it comfortably there, gradually increase the tempo. I think the goal should be around 115. If you can get to 120 beats per minute, like it's written here, that would be fantastic. But as always, correct notes are more important than speed. So if you're playing it at 120, but you're playing it sloppy and hitting wrong notes and wrong partials, that would not be what I would consider success. All right, knock the tempo down just a little bit until you can play it at 100% accuracy. All right, let's look at the last line. these next few measures aren't as tricky as what we just played. Um, they're pretty familiar arpeggios. The only thing I would say is watch out for measure 49, because it doesn't just go down a scale. You'll see the last two notes of measure 49 skip a note. So that would be the only tricky part. Let me demonstrate that for you slowly real quick. All right, we're almost to the very end. Let's look at the last three measures. This is probably the most tricky spot because there's going to be large interval jumps. The way I found the most successful practice method for this is to take a small portion, like the first three notes, play that in repetition, and whenever you can play that cleanly, I would say about 3 times, add the fourth note, and then play that cleanly 3 times in a row. Then add the fifth note. So I'll demonstrate the practice method that I used that gave me the most consistency when playing through this, especially once I got to playing it at tempo at 120 beats per minute. After doing this kind of practice routine, your fingers will just start to flow with it, and these intervals are going to feel like second nature. Okay, that sounds fine. Let's add the next note, or the fourth note. Good. Let's add the next note. So on. Let's add the next one. And so on until you can add the rest of the ending with the 16th note tag at the end. Well, that concludes the mini lesson for Etude number 2. Best of luck on your audition. And again, if you happen to see me around TMEA, feel free to come by and say hello. Thank you.